What happens when one simple question, spoken calmly, almost casually, reaches into the deepest part of someone who has spent her entire life trying to smile through the pain? What happens when a Hollywood icon, America's sweetheart, sits under the blinding studio lights of The View, thinking she's here for a routine interview, only to unravel before millions? Before we dive into this moment, the moment everything changed, make sure you subscribe to Stage View, hit the like button, and comment, because what you're about to witness is one of the most unexpected breakdowns ever caught on daytime television. The cameras rolled in slow, sweeping arcs across the studio. The audience buzzed with that familiar mix of anticipation and restless chatter. Reese Witherspoon, wearing a carefully chosen powder blue dress and the trademark soft smile that had graced countless red carpets, sat elegantly in her chair. Her posture was perfect, her breathing calm, but something in her eyes, the tiniest flicker, hinted at a storm beneath. Whoopi Goldberg leaned forward, elbows resting on the table, the posture of someone who wasn't just interviewing, but probing. She had that expression, the one that always made guests straighten up. Part curiosity, part instinct, part blunt honesty that had made her legendary. "So, Reese," Whoopi said, her voice steady, warm, but sharp enough to cut. "You've played strong women. You've produced stories about women finding their voice. But what about you? When did you last feel like your own voice wasn't being heard?" The audience went quiet. Reese blinked once. Then again. It was such a simple question. No accusation, no dramatic flourish. But something in the way Whoopi said your own voice. It was like it reached inside Reese's ribcage and touched a bruise she had tried so hard to pretend wasn't there. Reese's smile trembled. Barely. Almost invisible. But the cameras caught it. "Well," she began, adjusting her hands in her lap. I think everyone goes through moments like that." Whoopi didn't move, didn't blink. "But I'm asking about you." Reese inhaled sharply, the kind of breath you take when you've been cornered emotionally, not physically. And viewers at home later said they could actually see her pulse jump in her neck. Joy Behar glanced sideways, sensing the tension. Sarah Haynes shifted in her seat. The audience leaned forward, every seat suddenly a front-row chair. Reese's voice quivered. Well, Whoopi, I don't know if..." But Whoopi interrupted, not unkindly. "Reese, people admire you. They think you've got your life tied in a pretty bow. But everybody knows that behind the bow, there's usually a mess someone doesn't want to talk about." A laugh rippled through the crowd, then died as quickly as it came. Reese swallowed. Hard. Her eyes flicked down to the table, then up at the lights. Her breath hitched as she tried to speak, her words catching on something inside her that she had been holding back for far too long. "I think," she whispered. "I think the last time I didn't feel heard was this year. Actually, it was last month." The studio froze. Her voice began to crack, the polished Hollywood composure slipping like glass under heat. "And I just kept smiling," she added, her fingers twisting together. "Because that's what everyone expects me to do." Suddenly the atmosphere changed. It wasn't just an interview anymore. It felt raw, unfiltered, like the air had thinned and every person, camera operator, audience member, co-host, was holding their breath. The narrative tension tightened as Reese looked at Whoopi with eyes filled not with anger, but with exhaustion. "I'm tired," she whispered. "Really, really tired." And that's when the tremble in her lip became more than the cameras could hide. Everything was about to break. Part 2. Reese tried to gather herself. She pressed her palms flat against her thighs, as though grounding herself, as though reminding her body that she still had control over it even if her heart was starting to sprint into panic. The studio lights felt hotter than they had at the start of the segment. Sweat gathered at her hairline, barely noticeable but still there. The audience began murmuring softly, unsure if they were watching a scripted emotional moment or something frighteningly real. Joy Behar leaned in, her voice softer this time. "Reese, honey, you okay?" Reese exhaled a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good." She broke off, squeezing her eyes shut for a second. "I didn't expect to talk about this today." Whoopi nodded once. That's usually when the truth shows up. Reese's shoulders rose and fell, a deep inhale trying to steady shaking nerves. People think my life is easy. Perfect. And maybe I helped create that illusion. But the truth is, sometimes I feel invisible." The audience gasped. Joy blinked. "Invisible? Reese, you're everywhere." "I know." Reese cut in gently, wiping the corner of her eye. "But being seen everywhere isn't the same as being heard or understood." The studio grew still again. Reese took another breath, but this one was deeper, heavier, like she had finally reached the part of the truth she had been afraid to approach. You know what it feels like? She asked, looking directly at Whoopi this time. To be the one everyone relies on, while nobody asks how you are. To be the problem solver. The peacemaker. The smiling face in every room. And the moment you stop smiling, everyone panics. Her voice wavered. Whoopi's gaze softened. That's a heavy load for anybody. It is. Reese's voice thickened. And sometimes I feel like if I let myself fall apart, even for a moment, the whole world will say I'm ungrateful or dramatic or unstable. So I just hold it in. Then came the silence. The kind that presses against the walls. The kind that feels like time itself pauses. Sarah Haynes reached out, touching Reese's arm. You don't have to hold everything alone. Reese's chin quivered, her head bowing slightly as her composure weakened. But that's the thing. I do. Because every time I ask for help, people act like I'm too much. Like I'm a burden. Her voice cracked completely. And then it happened. Her breathing shifted, trembling as she moved both hands to her face. She wasn't sobbing yet, but she was fighting with everything inside her not to. Joy whispered to the producer off camera. Should we cut? But Whoopi lifted one hand slightly, halting everyone. No, she said quietly. Let her speak. She needs to. Reese lowered her hands. Mascara smudged lightly beneath her eyes. Her voice came out in a harsh whisper. I don't even know who I am when I'm not performing for everyone. The audience gasped again, this time with a low, emotional rumble, like a collective heartache. The unraveling had begun. Part 3. Reese's breathing became uneven, each inhale shaky, sharp, the kind that comes right before someone loses the battle against tears. She looked up, eyes glossy. I came here to promote a project. Just a normal day. And then you asked me that question. She pointed at Whoopi with trembling fingers. And suddenly it felt like the whole weight of the last 10 years was sitting right here. She pressed her hand against her chest. Whoopi's expression softened even more. You're allowed to feel that. You're allowed to not be perfect today. Reese gave a shaky laugh. But that's the thing. Perfect is my job. Perfect is what people pay me to be. No, Whoopi shook her head. People pay you to be human. They just forget that part. Reese blinked rapidly, trying to steady herself. But something inside her broke open instead. You know what happened last month? She said, her voice trembling. Someone I trusted, someone close, told me I need to stop being so emotional. That my feelings were inconvenient. The audience reacted instantly. Shocked murmurs, whispers, low groans. Reese's face crumpled. And I just nodded. I said okay. I swallowed it. I pretended it didn't hurt, because that's what I do. Her hands trembled uncontrollably now. I've spent my whole life being the girl who holds everything together. The girl who doesn't explode. The girl who doesn't cry. Her voice cracked. But I'm so tired of being strong. Her voice finally broke on the last word, and a soft, painful sob escaped her. She clapped a hand over her mouth, trying to silence it, but emotion had its own force now. The audience gasped again. Sarah handed her a tissue. Joy rubbed her back. Even Sunny Hostin leaned forward, her voice low and soothing. You're safe here, Reese. Really? Reese nodded weakly, tears streaming down her cheeks now. I just want to be heard, she whispered. Not managed. Not handled. Just heard. Whoopi leaned back, giving her space but keeping her voice steady. You are heard. Right now. By everyone. Reese wiped her cheeks, breathing shakily. The breakdown was no longer a crack. It had become a release. But in that release was a strange, fragile relief. I didn't think anyone would ever ask me that question, she said. And I didn't know how much I needed someone to. The room sat in stunned, emotional silence. Part 4. The aftermath was unlike anything the show had experienced in years. When the segment aired, social media exploded. Clips of Reese's trembling voice and Whoopi's piercing question flooded timelines within minutes. #ReeseBreaksDown trended worldwide. Some viewers praised the raw honesty, calling it one of the realest moments in celebrity TV history. Others questioned why the show didn't cut to commercial. But most simply felt for her. People shared their own stories, feeling invisible, unheard, exhausted by the pressure to keep it together. Reese's cry became their cry. Her vulnerability became a mirror. The next day, media outlets dissected every second of the moment. Some headlines read, Reese Witherspoon gets real on The View. Whoopi's question that broke Hollywood's strongest smile. Raw, honest, human, Reese speaks her truth. But none of them captured what it felt like in that studio. The way the air had thickened, the way every heartbeat seemed to sync with hers, the way the audience sat frozen as her facade melted away. Back on the stage, the moment ended gently. Reese gathered herself. The hosts hugged her. The audience gave her a long, heartfelt standing ovation. Not out of spectacle, but out of understanding. And when Reese finally walked off stage, mascara smudged but eyes lighter, she looked human. Real. Not a Hollywood construct, but a woman finally unburdened. And now, right now, it's your turn. What did you think of Reese's breakdown on The View? Was Whoopi's question too deep? Or exactly what needed to be asked? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe to Stage View for more explosive, dramatic, deeply human celebrity stories. The ones that pull you right into the heart of the moment. More powerful stories are coming. Stay tuned. Reese Witherspoon's throat tightened as the weight of her own words lingered in the air. She hadn't planned to say any of this. She hadn't planned to feel any of this. But the studio lights, the crowd, the tension sitting between her and Whoopi, it all came together like a pressure chamber she could no longer escape. She shifted in her chair slowly, carefully, like any sudden movement might shatter the fragile composure she was clinging to. The blue fabric of her dress rustled softly, a tiny sound swallowed instantly by the silent, breathless room. Joy Behar glanced around nervously, offering one of her trademark half-smiles meant to lighten the mood. "Well, this is getting deep," she said, her tone gentle, almost hesitant. Reese forced a small laugh, thin, hollow, trembling. "Yeah, deeper than I expected." But the laugh didn't reach her eyes. In fact, nothing did. Her eyes were distant, glassy, unfocused, as if she were looking not at the co-hosts, not at the cameras, but at something far away, something she had buried a long time ago. Whoopi leaned in slightly, speaking softly now, without her usual edge. "Reese, you don't have to push through it. You don't have to pretend." Reese's jaw tightened. She inhaled through her nose, audibly, like someone bracing for impact. "That's the thing," she said quietly. "I've been pretending for so long, I don't even know how to stop." The audience murmured, soft, sympathetic, unsettled. Sarah Haynes tilted her head, studying Reese carefully. "Are you saying you've been struggling for a while?" Reese looked at her, eyes glistening. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again, each attempt to find her words visibly painful. "Yeah," she whispered. "A long while." She glanced at the cameras, then looked away quickly, as if the mere idea of millions watching her like this made her skin tighten. She wiped her palms on her dress again, the nerves showing in every gesture. "You know," she said, her voice cracking, "people always see me as this cheerful, bubbly person. That's what they expect. But they don't see the nights I lie awake wondering if any of it means anything. They don't see the moments I break down in the bathroom before an event because I know I have to smile, even when I can't." Joy reached out, placing a soft hand over Reese's. "Sweetheart, that's a lot. You don't have to carry that alone." Reese's chin trembled as she pulled her hand back gently, not out of rejection, but because even comfort felt too heavy in that moment. I know, but that's how life has felt lately. Heavy." She swallowed hard. "And I think I didn't realize how much until you asked me that question, Whoopi." Whoopi nodded, her eyes soft but steady. "Sometimes all someone needs is permission to stop pretending." Reese blinked, and for a second she looked like she might fall apart right there, right on live television. She bit her lip, breathing shakily, fighting the emotion clawing its way up her throat. "I've been dealing with so much privately," she whispered. "There's pressure everywhere. Work, family, expectations. And I keep telling everyone I'm okay because it's easier than explaining why I'm not." The studio was silent, utterly still. Even the stage crew paused behind the cameras, frozen as if afraid their footsteps would snap her last thread of composure. Reese's voice thickened. "People think I'm confident, strong. But honestly, sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing, like I'm shouting into a room full of noise, and no one can hear me." Sarah leaned closer, frowning. "You feel unheard?" Reese laughed again, but this time there was bitterness in it. "All the time. You try to speak up, and people look at you like you're making a big deal out of nothing. So you just stop." Her hands trembled openly now. She didn't even bother to hide it. "And the worst part," she said, pressing a hand to her chest, "is that I've gotten so used to swallowing every feeling that I forgot what it feels like to actually express one." Joy Behar exchanged a quick look with Sunny Hostin, the unspoken question hanging between them. Do we intervene? Do we cut to commercial? But the producers in the back didn't signal anything. They could sense it too. This wasn't a meltdown. It was a confession years overdue. Whoopi spoke again, her tone unusually gentle. Reese, you're allowed to break sometimes. That doesn't make you weak. Reese's eyes filled suddenly, tears brimming so quickly she seemed shocked by them. She blinked rapidly, as if she could blink the emotions back into place. I don't like crying in front of people, she said softly. I always worry it makes them uncomfortable. It makes you human, Whoopi replied. Reese took a shaky breath, her voice cracking. I wish people saw that version of me instead of the one I'm constantly forced to play. The audience murmured again, this time in heartbreak. Reese lifted her trembling hands, clutching them together like someone trying desperately to stay grounded. Tears slipped down her face, one by one, slow, painful, unstoppable. I didn't come here to fall apart, she whispered. But maybe I needed to. The room fell into an emotional stillness. And for the first time since the segment began, Reese stopped fighting the truth rising out of her. Everything inside her was beginning to unravel, slowly, painfully, beautifully, like someone finally exhaling after years of holding their breath. The breakdown wasn't coming. It had already begun. Reese's breath fluttered in her chest, each inhale shaky and uneven, as if her body no longer remembered how to breathe without trembling. The audience stared at her with wide, stunned eyes. No one shifting, no one whispering now. Even the camera operators seemed frozen, their hands hovering over their controls, afraid that even a soft mechanical hum might break the fragile moment. Reese wiped her cheeks, but new tears slipped down almost instantly, tracing fresh paths across her skin. She didn't bother hiding them anymore. Something in her had snapped open, like a door she spent years bracing her weight against, only to finally let go. Her voice wavered as she tried to speak. She stopped, swallowing a sob that threatened to choke her. I didn't know saying this out loud would feel like this. Sunny Hostin leaned forward, her face soft with concern. Reese, you don't have to push yourself. We can pause. No, Reese whispered quickly. No, please. Let me finish. I need to say this. Whoopi nodded in quiet understanding. Then take your time. We're here. Reese let her gaze drift across the studio, over the audience, the lights, the co-hosts. Almost as if she were trying to confirm that this moment was real, that she wasn't imagining the whole world watching her unravel. My whole life, she began, voice shaky but steadying itself, I've been told to be composed, polished, pleasant. I was taught, since I was a kid, that the only acceptable version of me is the one who's smiling. Her words landed with a tremor, echoing through the stillness. For years, I've carried that like a script. She exhaled sharply. Smile. Laugh. Be charming. Don't complain. Don't make people uncomfortable. Don't take up too much space. The audience murmured again, soft and aching. Reese looked down at her trembling hands. And every time I tried to speak up about pressure, about exhaustion, about feeling overwhelmed, I'd get the same response. She swallowed. That I was too emotional, too sensitive, too much. Her voice cracked deeply on that last word. Joy Behar's expression softened. That sounds incredibly painful. Reese gave a small, broken laugh. It is. It is painful. But what hurts the most is that I started believing them. I started telling myself that my feelings were wrong, that I was wrong, that I should just keep quiet because no one wanted to hear it anyway. Sarah Haynes's hand slowly reached across the table toward Reese's, offering warmth without pressure, support without intrusion. Reese didn't pull away this time. Instead, she let Sarah's fingertips rest lightly against hers, a small gesture that felt unexpectedly grounding. And last month, Reese whispered, her eyes flicking downward as tears pooled again. Last month something happened that I haven't talked about publicly. The audience collectively leaned forward. Reese inhaled shakily, chest rising with effort. I had this moment where everything felt like it was collapsing. I told someone close to me that I was overwhelmed, that I needed help. And they looked at me and said, her voice cracked again. They said, Reese, you need to stop being so dramatic. Gasps rippled through the studio, sharp, sympathetic, disbelieving. Reese's breath faltered. They told me I was exhausting, that my emotions were inconvenient. A few audience members visibly winced. And I believed them, she said, tears falling freely now. I apologized. I said, I'm sorry for needing anything at all. Sunny shook her head gently. That must have been devastating. It was, Reese whispered. Because in that moment, I realized I've spent my whole life apologizing. For being human. For having feelings. For not being this perfect, cheerful little doll everyone wants me to be. Her voice deepened, raw. I'm so tired of being perfect, she said. I'm so tired of pretending. Her shoulders shook as another sob slipped out. Quieter this time, but deeper, like something breaking open inside her. Whoopi's voice softened to barely above a whisper. You don't need to be perfect here. You don't need to perform here. Just talk. Reese inhaled a trembling breath, nodding. You know what the worst part is? She asked. That I didn't even know how heavy everything had become until today. Until you asked me that question. And suddenly it was like everything I'd pushed down, everything I'd hidden, came rushing back up all at once. The audience watched, transfixed, as she pressed a hand against her heart like she was trying to hold it together. I keep thinking, her lip trembled. I keep thinking that if I show people the real me, the messy me, they'll leave. Joy shook her head slowly. People don't leave when you're real. They leave when they never cared in the first place. Reese blinked hard, the words hitting her like a wave. She looked at Joy, startled, then down again, her breath shuddering. I'm afraid, she confessed softly. Afraid that if I stop smiling, everyone will see how broken I really am. The room went silent again, heavy, emotional, reverent. And then Whoopi leaned forward, her tone steady, anchoring. Reese, you're not broken. You're hurting. There's a difference. And what you're doing right now. This is strength. Real strength. Not the Hollywood version. Reese's face crumpled at the words. Another tear fell. Then another. I didn't realize how much I needed someone to say that, she whispered. Her shoulders slumped, the first sign of relief, the first crack in the armor that wasn't from pain but from release. For the first time since the conversation began, Reese wasn't trembling from fear. She was trembling from letting go. And the moment she did, the entire studio felt it. The unraveling wasn't a breakdown anymore. It was a breakthrough. The studio stayed silent for a long moment after Reese's words faded into the charged air. It wasn't an awkward silence. It wasn't even a shocked one. It was something deeper, something reverent, like everyone in the room understood they had witnessed a moment that wasn't meant to be entertainment, but truth breaking through the mask of fame. Reese breathed in slowly, shakily, wiping her face with trembling fingers. Her mascara smudged in soft, dark trails beneath her eyes, but she didn't attempt to fix it. For the first time, she let herself exist without adjusting, without smoothing, without performing. Sarah squeezed her hand gently. You're safe here. You're heard. Reese nodded, her throat too tight to speak. Whoopi leaned back slightly, giving her space, her eyes warm. Kind in a way the audience wasn't used to seeing from her. I'm glad you told your truth, she said quietly. Sometimes you don't know you're carrying a mountain until someone asks you what's on your shoulders. Reese let out a soft exhale that sounded almost like a release, almost like relief. I didn't know how heavy it was, she whispered. I really didn't. The audience erupted, not in cheers, not in applause, but in a soft wave of emotional murmurs. A few people wiped their own eyes. One woman in the front row clutched her chest like the moment physically reached into her. Finally, after a long beat, Joy Behar cleared her throat gently. Reese, I think I speak for everyone when I say, you don't have to carry all this alone anymore. Reese looked at her, then at all the co-hosts, overwhelmed by the collective compassion surrounding her. She swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. Thank you. Then slowly, almost hesitantly, the audience began to applaud. Not loud, not wild. It was soft at first, then gradually grew into a standing ovation filled with warmth, sympathy, and something even deeper, recognition. They weren't clapping for a celebrity moment. They were clapping for a human one. Reese stood, visibly shaken but more grounded than before. The co-hosts rose with her, Sarah wrapping her in a gentle hug, Joy rubbing her back, Sunny whispering something comforting, and Whoopi placing a steady hand on her shoulder. As the show cut to commercial, the room filled with whispers, not gossip but empathy. She's just like us. She's really hurting. I didn't expect that. Wow, that was real. When Reese finally walked off the stage, she paused just beyond the camera lights, leaning against the wall for support. She took one last trembling breath, then let her shoulders fall, as if she had finally put the mountain down. But the world wasn't done reacting. Because the moment the episode aired, everything changed. Social media exploded within minutes. Clips of Reese's voice cracking, of tears sliding down her cheeks, of her whispered confession. I'm tired of being perfect, flooded every platform. Millions of people shared their own stories beneath her clip. She spoke for all of us. I felt that in my soul. I didn't know she was struggling. That was one of the rawest TV moments I've ever seen. Hashtags erupted globally. Hashtag Reese speaks. Hashtag Reese on the View. Hashtag it ain't not be okay. Hashtag let women be human. News outlets jumped in instantly. Reese Witherspoon breaks down on live TV. A rare glimpse behind Hollywood's smile. Whoopi's question that changed everything. Panel shows dissected it. TikTok stitched it. Twitter debated it. But overwhelmingly, the reaction was sympathetic, people connecting deeply to her vulnerability. For the first time in a long time, Reese wasn't being looked at as a perfect Hollywood figure. She was being seen as a person. A real, hurting, honest person. In the days that followed, think pieces circulated about emotional pressure on women in Hollywood, about public expectations, about the unseen burdens carried by the performers we love. Reese's tearful confession became the spark for a wider conversation that had been waiting far too long to ignite. And through all of it, Reese herself remained quiet, taking time, resting, healing. But the world kept talking. Inside that studio, though, the moment would never be forgotten. Not by the audience who saw her break. Not by the co-hosts who held her together. And not by the millions watching from home who saw something unfiltered, unguarded, and painfully real. And now, it's your turn. Tell me in the comments, do you think Whoopi's question went too far? Or was it exactly what Reese needed to finally open up? Share your thoughts below. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to Stage View for more dramatic, emotional, explosive celebrity moments that pull you right into the heart of the story. Because this was just one glimpse behind the curtain. More unforgettable moments are coming. Stay tuned and subscribe.